I still remember that morning like it was yesterday. Dad's words echoed off the walls before the sun even rose. "You never contribute around here," he snapped, voice thick with frustration. I clenched my fists, trying to keep tears at bay, my heart pounding in my ears. At 25, I thought I had proven myself capable. I paid my own bills, excelled at my job, and helped Mom whenever she needed it. Yet Dad's disappointment cut deeper than any critique I had ever faced. I knew he wasn't just talking about money. He was questioning my worth, my relationship with Dad had always been complicated. Growing up in suburban Philadelphia, I'd watched him toil long hours at the steel mill, dragging home his exhaustion like a shadow. He provided for us, yes, but affection was scarce. Mom often shielded me from his worst moods, brushing off his harsh words with a gentle smile. I loved both of them fiercely, but as I approached adulthood, I craved recognition. I wanted Dad to see me as an adult, not the kid who spilled milk at the dinner table or forgot to mow the lawn. That morning's comment felt like a verdict. Mom burst into the kitchen moments after Dad stormed out, her eyes glistening with worry. She wrapped her arms around me, her perfume a blend of lavender and vanilla, and whispered, "Don't let him get to you, sweetheart." I wanted to believe her, but bitterness had already settled deep in my chest. I nodded, forcing a smile. Then she inhaled sharply. "Your concert idea," she said, eyes brightening. "It's perfect, Jenny. Let's give Dad and me a night to remember." I blinked. 2 weeks ago, I'd suggested booking a local jazz band for their anniversary party. It was crazy expensive, but maybe exactly what we needed. Finding the right band wasn't easy. I spent evenings scrolling through reviews online, sending emails, and making calls. Our small hometown had a handful of talented musicians, but availability and budgets rarely aligned. Each rejection stung, reminding me of Dad's words. Maybe I truly didn't matter. Then one Friday, I discovered the Blue Grooves, a quartet renowned for soulful renditions of classic tunes. Their demo reel featured a haunting version of Moon River, Mom's favorite song. Booking them would exceed my savings, but I saw it as an investment in healing. I pressed confirm on the invoice, heart racing. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind. I picked up a part-time hostess shift at the bistro downtown to cover the cost, juggling late-night tables with deliveries of party supplies. My cheeks burned as I explained to friends why I was suddenly so busy and light on cash. "It's worth it," I insisted, even when myself doubted it. Between work shifts, I fussed over decorations, fairy lights, a custom banner reading 30 years together, and a playlist of Mom's childhood favorites. Every detail mattered, because this night wasn't just an anniversary. It was my way of saying I'd stepped up. When the day arrived, I woke before dawn, nerves coiling in my stomach. The community hall smelled of polished wood and anticipation. I arranged tables and chairs, rehearsed my speech under my breath, and triple-checked the sound system. Dad dropped by briefly to move boxes silent and distant. I held my breath as he set down a crate, wondering if he'd learn about my surprise. Mom arrived last, radiant in a seafoam green dress. Her eyes widened when she saw the setup. "Jenny," she whispered, breathless. "It's beautiful." My chest swelled with relief as she hugged me tight. By evening, the hall filled with neighbors, relatives, and family friends. Conversation buzzed like electricity, glasses clinked, and laughter floated in the air. I spotted Dad near the punch bowl, arms crossed, watching me. My heart pounded, but I forced calm. When I introduced the band, I cleared my throat. "Thank you all for being here to celebrate my parents' anniversary. This night is dedicated to the 2 people who taught me what love means." I saw Dad's jaw shift, his expression unreadable. Then the band struck the first chord of Moon River. Mom's eyes welled up. As the melody unfurled, a hush fell over the crowd. The saxophone's gentle cry matched a tremor in Mom's voice as she sang along softly under her breath. I watched Dad's stiff shoulders relax, his gaze on Mom, light flickering in his eyes. For a moment, time slowed. The band transitioned into a swing version, tapping their feet in sync, and suddenly the hall erupted in applause. Dad stepped toward me, placing a heavy hand on my shoulder. "Kid," he said, voice thick, "you did good. Tears blurred my vision as relief washed over me. Dad's approval tasted sweeter than any paycheck I'd earned. I smiled at him, feeling seen for the first time in years. Mom squeezed my hand, her tears shimmering in the stage lights. The band segued into another tune, and I let the music carry me. That night, I didn't just pay for a song, I bought a moment of unity, a bridge over years of misunderstanding. As the melody faded and guests swayed under fairy lights, I realized something profound. It's about heart and soul, truly combined. After the band finished their set, the hall was alive with conversation and warmth. I watched Mom and Dad dance slowly in the center of the hardwood floor, their eyes locked, smiles soft and genuine. It felt surreal to witness them so connected. After years of distance and guarded emotions, my chest lightened as I realized that my gamble had paid off in more ways than I could have imagined. The once tense undercurrent between my parents had all but vanished, replaced by laughter and whispered words. I stepped back to allow them space, leaning against a table decorated with softly flickering candles and framed photographs of Mom and Dad through the years. I ran my fingers across a faded image of their wedding day, both young and hopeful, and wondered how many memories I could help them create in the years to come. I drifted among the guests, collecting empty glasses and joining in snippets of conversation. My coworkers complimented me on the decorations and music selection, and friends poked fun at my renewed hostess gig. Each compliment fueled a quiet pride that steadied my confidence in ways I had never experienced. I realized that contributing didn't always mean doing chores or paying bills. It could be about creating experiences and nurturing moments of joy. As I carried a tray of cupcakes toward a cluster of elderly neighbors, I overheard them remark that the party felt intimate and genuine, unlike many other community hall events. My heart swelled at their words, and I smiled broadly, savoring the realization that I had orchestrated something truly special for the people I loved. Mom appeared beside me, her dress brush sweeping the floor as she moved. She laid a hand on my arm and smiled. "Jenny," she whispered, "I've never felt so happy." I squeezed her hand and leaned in. "Thank you for believing in me," I replied. She kissed my cheek and returned to dancing with Dad, leaving me with a flowering warmth that radiated through my chest. At that moment, I felt my role in this family shift. I wasn't just a daughter who occasionally helped with chores. I was their creative force, someone capable of weaving magic from thin air, even if that magic took the form of jazz music and fairy lights. I exhaled slowly, committing the feeling to memory. Soon after, Dad approached me, his posture more relaxed than it had been earlier in the week. He carried 2 half-full glasses of punch and offered me one. "Here," he said, handing me the cup. "You should take a moment." I accepted it, surprised by the gesture. We found a quiet corner near the windows where a gentle breeze drifted through the open panes. He leaned against the sill, gazing out at the summer sky. The lights inside glowed like fireflies. "I owe you an apology," he began, once his gaze returned to me. "I was unfair this month. I let work and frustration get the better of me, and I took it out on you." My throat clenched and tears pricked my eyes. I offered him a small smile and tilted my head. "Thank you," I whispered. "I came up with this surprise because I care and wanted to show you and Mom how much you mean to me." Dad nodded and rubbed his thumb across the rim of his glass. "I see that now. You're good with people. Good at organizing. Sometimes I forget that your talents aren't measured by physical labor alone." He paused and then added, "I'm proud of you." The words settled over me like a soft blanket. We stood there in comfortable silence as a distant trumpet solo mingled with the hum of conversation, moments of quiet punctuating the vibrancy of the celebration. In the following days, the atmosphere at home shifted in subtle ways. The tension I had grown accustomed to disappeared into a quiet respect. Dad lingered at the dinner table, asking about my work and sharing stories from the mill that he had never considered interesting enough to mention before. Mom hummed as she washed dishes, her voice bright and easy. I discovered small joys in our routines, like brewing coffee together in the morning or folding laundry while discussing weekend plans. I realized that one memorable evening could spark change but sustaining it required continuous effort and genuine presence. I resolved to keep finding ways to connect, to build on the fragile bridge I had started laying. That Monday, I strode into the office with newfound energy. My manager took me aside to commend my recent performance, noting improvements in client relationships. I shared snippets of the anniversary party, the music, the dancing, the heartfelt apologies, and watched as her eyes lit up. "You have a gift for creating experiences," she said. I hesitated and then suggested that I might contribute to the company by organizing client appreciation events modeled on my parents' celebration. She raised an eyebrow and challenged me to draft a proposal. Energized by her encouragement, I spent evenings after work outlining a plan for quarterly gatherings, complete with budgets, themes, and local vendors. Emboldened by my mother's and manager's belief in me, I crafted detailed proposals that highlighted cost-effective strategies, such as collaborating with neighborhood musicians and sourcing artisanal snacks from nearby bakeries. Each section of the document reflected insights I had gained from orchestrating the surprise party at the community hall. When I submitted the proposal, I felt a thrill of possibility. Whether or not it was approved, I knew that I had tapped into a core aspect of myself that I had undervalued for too long. My contributions could be as meaningful in the workplace as they were at home. Meanwhile, my evening shifts at the bistro continued. I discovered that juggling 3 roles, daughter, marketer, hostess, taught me adaptability and resilience. On slow nights, I began mentoring new staff members, offering tips on efficient service and conflict resolution. They started calling me Coach, a nickname I accepted with a shy grin. Each hang-up phone call, each catered platter, and each compliment from a customer reinforced my belief that my efforts mattered. The satisfaction I felt was different from a paycheck, rooted in recognition of my emotional intelligence and leadership. By the end of the month, Dad surprised me once more by inviting me to accompany him on a fishing trip to Pine Lake. He handed me his worn tackle box and offered advice on selecting bait. I hesitated, unsure of my casting skills, until he added, "It's time we spent some one-on-one time." I accepted with enthusiasm. The early morning drive was filled with comfortable silences, the air crisp and tinged with pine. When we launched the boat and the sun peaked above the tree line, the lake shimmered with dawn's colors. Dad showed me how to cast, and we teased each other when lines tangled. Laughter rippled across the water. In that moment, I felt connected to him in a way I never had before. No harsh words, no unspoken expectations, just two people sharing an ordinary morning. I realized that true contribution to a family meant showing up consistently, in grand gestures and quiet routines alike. I understood that my worth wasn't measured solely by completed tasks or financial support, but by the authenticity and care I brought to every interaction. When I reeled in my first fish, Dad cheered and I beamed with pride. As we headed back to shore, I glanced at his weathered profile in the golden sunlight and felt hopeful. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but it was evolving. I had paid for a song that healed a rift on one special night, but this fishing trip reminded me that life's most meaningful moments arise from ongoing presence, understanding, and love. I felt ready to embrace whatever adventures awaited us, confident that my heart and actions would continue to matter to the people I loved most. The morning sunlight filtered through my apartment blinds just as my alarm buzzed, and I lay there for a moment, savoring the warmth and the echo of laughter from Dad on Pine Lake. The fishing trip had felt like the softening of a long-held tension, and I carried that calm into my day as I prepared for a pivotal meeting at work. My proposal for quarterly client events was up for review, and my heart fluttered as I straightened my blazer and grabbed my presentation folder. I reminded myself that contribution took many forms. My ability to bring people together was as real a skill as any technical expertise. At the office, I was greeted by Meredith, my manager, who offered an encouraging smile as I settled into the conference room. The table was lined with fresh notepads and coffee cups, and I felt a familiar surge of nerves. I opened with a brief story about my parents' anniversary celebration, highlighting how a simple, heartfelt gesture had transformed their relationship. As I moved through slides detailing budgets, themes, and vendor partnerships, I watched the client's eyes light up at images of fairy lights, local jazz bands, and artisanal hors d'oeuvres. My voice grew steadier with each word. Meredith chimed in, praising my attention to detail and the potential for these events to deepen client loyalty. When the meeting ended, the room buzzed with positive feedback. One client asked when we could schedule the first gathering, and another suggested collaborating with a regional winery they knew. I exhaled with relief, pride blooming in my chest. Walking back to my desk, I sent an email to the band I had booked for my parents' party, thanking them for their professionalism and asking if they'd be interested in performing at our company's next event. They replied within minutes. Enthusiastic and available, that afternoon, I met up with Mom for our weekly coffee date at the cafe down the street. She greeted me with a hug, her eyes twinkling as I told her about the meeting's success and the band's quick response. She sipped her latte and said, "I always knew your creativity and compassion would shine through, honey." Her unwavering faith made me feel grounded. We chatted about Dad's reaction to the proposal and laughed over memories of his old fishing stories. Before parting ways, she slipped an envelope into my hand, a small gift card with a note, "For your next big idea." I smiled, touched by her thoughtfulness. Back home, I pulled out the gift card and realized that my parents' small acts of encouragement had become a cycle. I'd supported them when they needed healing, and now they were investing in my dreams. With renewed energy, I drafted a timeline for the first client event, securing the venue, finalizing the menu, and coordinating with the band. I also assigned tasks to our internal marketing team, delegating social media teasers and invite designs. By the end of the evening, my to-do list was ambitious but manageable, and I felt deeply engaged, my contributions weaving into both my personal and professional worlds. The following weekend, I volunteered to host a small meet and greet at my apartment for colleagues who'd be part of the planning committee. I baked cookies, brewed tea, and arranged cushions on the living room floor. As we chatted about venue acoustics and lighting, I noticed my confidence glowing brighter than any string of fairy lights. One of my coworkers paused and said, "You have a real knack for making people feel at ease. I'm glad you're leading this." I laughed, then thanked her sincerely. In that moment, I recognized how far I'd come. I was no longer the daughter who couldn't do enough. I was the leader who inspired others. Meanwhile, at home, Dad had started asking for my advice on household matters. One evening he called me into the kitchen to consult about replacing the old refrigerator. He listened intently as I compared models, energy ratings, and costs. As we filled out an online order together, I saw a grateful glint in his eyes. "I appreciate your input," he said quietly. It felt like the greatest compliment and acknowledgement that my contributions, no matter how different from his, were valuable. A few days later, the community jazz festival rolled into town, and Mom invited me to join her and a group of friends. I met them at the park's main stage, where the Blue Grooves were scheduled to perform. When the band spotted me in the crowd, they waved, and I waved back, smiling with a sense of belonging. As they launched into Moon River again, I glanced at Mom swaying beside me. She caught my eye and mouthed, "You did this." I felt a rush of emotion, gratitude for the way music had knitted our family together, and pride that I had been the catalyst. On Monday, I walked into work with an email from the CEO himself, congratulating me on the client event proposal and asking me to present it at the next executive meeting. My breath caught as Meredith high-fived me by the water cooler. Over the following weeks, I coordinated site visits, negotiated vendor contracts, and drafted invitations. I balanced this with shifts at the bistro, where I continued to share tips with new hosts and mentors. Each role reinforced another, teaching me about adaptability, empathy, and resourcefulness. By the time the inaugural client appreciation event arrived, I felt ready. The venue was draped in soft pastel drapes, clusters of candles glowed on each table, and the Blue Groove soundcheck filled the space with warmth. Clients arrived, greeted by personalized name cards and a welcome cocktail that incorporated a local orchard's apple cider. As I welcomed them at the entrance, I heard compliments on the ambience and the creativity of the program. I led the first toast, speaking from the heart about collaboration, community, and the importance of celebrating milestones together. When the band struck up a cheerful swing tune, I joined a few clients on the dance floor, laughing as I stepped on heels and seized magnums of cheer. Later, Meredith pulled me aside and said, "This is a triumph, one of the best events we've ever hosted." My cheeks warmed with pride. I thought about Dad's critique, those harsh words that had ignited a determination in me. Instead of letting them bruise me, I had channeled them into proving my worth on my own terms. That night, as I walked home under the street lamp's glow, I felt content in a way I never had before. Contribution meant so much more than chores or financial support. It was about using my strengths to create connection and joy. My journey had taught me to trust in my talents and to remember that I mattered not despite my differences, but because of them. When I unlocked my door, I paused, taking a deep breath, feeling the soft hum of possibility around me. I knew that whichever paths lay ahead, family, career, or personal adventures, I would continue to contribute from the heart, confident that my voice, my creativity, and my care would always matter.